Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Welcome back to Illinois Rising. With me today, in the absence of Dan Proft, is Kristen McQueary from the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Kristen, it is so much more fun to look across this place at you rather than Dan, I have to say. So we've had quite a week in Springfield, chipping away at Speaker Madigan's power. You are a longtime observer of politics in Illinois. In fact, most people don't know that you're probably the only person that interviews every candidate who runs for the General Assembly. You interview every person who runs for the City Council in the city of Chicago. I hope you are getting combat pay from the Tribune Company, because you certainly deserve it. Tell us what you think this means in terms of short-term and long-term impact.
So short-term impact, I do think it gives the governor, the vote last week gives the governor leverage as he sits down at the table with AFSCME. And by the way, meetings are scheduled for this week between the two sides. So I think it was a slap in the face to AFSCME that they can't do this end run to the General Assembly to try to dismantle negotiations because they don't like the way that they're going. Long-term, I don't like, I always kind of fall back on the fact that voters have really short memories, and you can never underestimate the ability of Speaker Madigan and the Democrats in Springfield to come up with some new way to undercut taxpayers, to undercut this process, to empower AFSCME. So I wouldn't say that this victory is going to be terribly long-lived, but I think in the short term, as it relates to the negotiations at the table, it certainly is a win for the governor, hands down.
A listener that is supportive of the unions, maybe a union member, who would like to see things get better here in Illinois, would hear what you just said, and what you implied is that Speaker Madigan doesn't care about the broad taxpayers of Illinois, the citizens of Illinois, that he only cares about his union supporters, maybe the trial bar, the people that fund his political campaigns and help him sustain political power. Aren't you really just a cynic about all this?
No. Mike Madigan does not care about policy. And this is from not just observing him over the past 20 years, but from having lots of interviews with people who are very close to him. And there aren't many. Being in politics as long as he has really isolated himself, and there are only a few confidants that he has. He doesn't care about policy. If he cared about middle-class taxpayers, he wouldn't have driven the state of Illinois to the edge of a cliff where we're now all on the hook for over $100 billion in liabilities for the pension fund. So I don't think the Democrats have watched out for the middle class. And I just, it's not personal with Mike Madigan. I don't have anything, this is politics. It's not personal. But he does not care about policy. He cares about keeping his majority and maintaining power.
Why does he care about that so much? I'm asked that question all the time. Why? I don't understand. Why does he care about having power? What's in it for him? Why does he want to be in that chair? And he's Thelma and John Cullerton is Louise, and the car's heading off into the Grand Canyon. Why is that so fun for him?
I think, again, being in Springfield for 40 years, they're really tone deaf to what regular Illinoisans are going through and dealing with every day. I think it's a very toxic environment to be given so much power and to have so much power for so long. And he does have a big ego, and at some point he's going to retire. He wants his legacy to be intact, and he will not retire. He will not leave until he gets back to a point of, not being the villain in Illinois politics. And it has happened in the past. I mean, not too long ago when Blagojevich was running state government, people were saying, thank God we have Mike Madigan in Springfield. So the tables do turn, and public opinion does twist. I get emails every day from people defending Mike Madigan.
So one of the things going on in Springfield, of course, is this budget impasse, and now we have this vote on the arbitration bill behind us that we've been talking about today. A lot of people come to me and they're freaking out that there's no solution. This is going on and on and on, and we sent Ron there to make a deal. I actually believe that the budget impasse, whatever happens from this point forward, that the fact that we're here today is actually already a victory. And the reason I believe that is if one of the other three potential nominees who are competing with Governor Rauner to be the nominee had become the nominee and then won and defeated Governor Quinn, the deal would have already been done. The capitulation would have already happened. So the fact that it hasn't is a victory already. What do you think of that theory?
I agree with you. I'm still a little uncomfortable with the length of time that has passed where you don't have Democrats willing to come to the table. So while I'm glad Rauner is holding out, it does concern me that the people who are going to get squeezed from all of this madness are the social service agencies, which are starting to talk about closing their doors or not accepting as many clients. It's so painful for me to watch that is the end result of all of this impasse. And so while I'm glad Rauner is holding out, I'm worried for the most vulnerable who are going to get, they're the ones who are going to be affected the most by this.
And in the end, so as that public relations battle unfolds, the fight is going to be between the Democrats and the unions. Speaker Madigan on that side is the team captain, and Governor Rauner, the Republicans, and other advocates in the space on the other team to see who gets blamed.
Yes.
Do you think the governor is doing enough to really get the message out there about why the responsibility is with Speaker Madigan and that these things can be overcome in a reasonable way that does protect the most vulnerable, but at the same time does structural reforms to spending?
I think the governor is trying to do that. I think he has made a couple missteps in initially coming out so strongly against public employee unions and pushing for things that he is just not going to get through the General Assembly, like prevailing wage. I know those are things your organization supports, and they would be cost-cutting measures, but you have to deal with the reality that this is not Wisconsin. This is you have a Democratic-controlled legislature, and so I would have liked to have seen him back off on some of those initial attacks on organized labor and used the negotiations right now with AFSCME as his chief tool to try to bring costs under control.
She is Kristen McQueary from the Chicago Tribune editorial board, one of the smartest people in politics in the state of Illinois.